African Union. We're about to go live. The Hangout is now live. My name is Herschel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union. And what we are is a civil society organization of the African Union, which is the 54 nations of Africa. The 54 nations of Africa united together. And in 2005, the African Union defined the African diaspora of peoples of African descent, heritage living outside the continent, irrespective of their citizenship, who remain committed to contribute to the development of the continent and building of the African Union. As of July 16, 2012, that may be over 300 million people. That means the African Union could represent over 1.5 billion people around the world. We're in the United States. And the United States in 1885 created what is now Africa with 13 other nations. These 14 nations met in Berlin, and the only African continental nation was Ethiopia. Fast forward to 2016, and the 14 nations included the United States, included Ethiopia, and the other 12 were on the European continent. And they had this conference so that they would not have a world war between the leaders of Africa who were raiding the African continent. That even goes on today. So we came together in the African Union with the African Union in 2013. And when we came together, we noticed our situation that we earned over $1 trillion, which is more than the combined income of Egypt, South Africa, and Nigeria. But we don't act like it. So what we have done today and are going to do today is I'm just going to read you a simple proposal that later today will be sent to the President of the United States. And here it is. The FAU Global Stimulus, $5 trillion, Daniels, infinite delivery, infinite quality program. That today we will talk about this program, and then we're going to switch to Dr. Juluis Garvey, 1 o'clock, speaking from the National Press Club. But what we are doing is based on the things that his father did. And in terms of that, we're a simple statement, less than, I guess, 200 words. It says, President Obama, as President of the United States, by yourself with no congressional oversight, you can tell your Treasury Secretary or the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee Chairwoman, Janet Yellen, to directly that we want, that he wants to use additional quantitative easing authority, which he was issued $16 trillion in a 2010 report by the General Accounting Office. And of that, we guesstimate that 8.75 trillion has been used. And so the Federal Open Market Committee will then, at his direction, open the open market trading desk at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to conclude a $5 trillion asset purchase program with us and our allies, and through January 19, 2017. So President Barack Obama, we, the members of Friends of the African Union, followers in the tradition of Reginald Lewis, Reverend Dr. Leon Sullivan, Dr. Dorothy Hyde, Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, Dr. Mary Bethune-Cookman, Harriet Tubman, and W.E. Du Bois proposed that the United States government enter into a public-private partnership with Friends of the African Union's Global Stimulus Task Force that will be formed tomorrow on the $5 trillion United States 100-year solution to the end of institutionalized federal government racism against American citizens who are descendants of American slavery, and institutionalized racism to the African American population of over 40 million Americans who are the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. The public-private partnership shall be used and shall be the first that's driven by parents that will directly affect 55 million Americans and use a 100-year infinite delivery, infinite quantity, infinite quality program called the Daniels IDIQ. The FAU, Friends of the African Union, will in 300 congressional districts in every state through a local Friends of the African Union Global Stimulus Daniels IDIQ program, public-private partnership, implement a means-tested solution using FAU modified My Brother's Keeper Alliance playbook. What this will do is, one, it will erase the digital divide. Two, it will erase the health divide. Three, it will invest in a green power network. Four, it will invest in green-based solutions to water, air, and sewer infrastructure while removing lead contamination in homes and community soil. Invested in developing green housing that employs first-time employees as well as those re-entering society from incarceration. 6, support developing and capitalization of 2 million male and female by birth businesses based on mitigating their credit gap. And 7, creating jobs and a workforce for the aforementioned businesses. Now, in the next couple of minutes, I'll explain that, and I'll take any questions that anybody may have. But we are, like I said, we are now live, and we are now broadcasting this conference. And if you have any questions, now is a good time for you to ask. And so far, I see we only have Yonel. Okay, is the only person that we have, who is our Chief of Staff to Friends of the African Union. And so, any questions, please?
Not at this moment. Looking to see
All right,
Kelly.
invite people. Okay, so that's interesting.
You hear me? Can you hear me?
So people actually are not getting this hangout. All the people who we haven't hanged out. All right, we're new to the technology, but we will get it better. Interesting. All right. I'm going to stop this program. I see it is started. Okay. All right, so I'm sorry about that. Okay, it looked like for a second that the technology wasn't working, but it is operator error. Okay, now we should pick that up for everybody, and so there we go. All right, so a whole bunch of people now have been invited. Okay, and we'll invite more to join us in another 6 minutes. Dr. Julius will be on the air, and we will look forward to him talking about his father. Meanwhile, we're talking about the action of the president by himself. He doesn't need congressional oversight to do this. What he needs is the will his people. He's first generation African American. There's over 40 million of us who are descendants from the transatlantic slave trade. Those of us who are descendants from the transatlantic slave trade are looking to his leadership, so that that leadership would be able to then be able to be used to our favor, because by doing this, what he's doing is pumping money into the economy. And so the Department of Labor, okay, the Department of Labor is an organization that says that for every $1 billion, we create 25,000 jobs. So for every $1 trillion, you can create 25 million jobs. So for $5 trillion, you theoretically are creating, okay, over 125 million jobs. The reality is, our program will create 7 million jobs. That's what we're looking at doing. 7 million jobs. Okay, how can he turn that down to be the president who creates 7 million jobs? Okay, we hope he isn't the president who does that. He has a chance to go down in history as the president who created not only 7 million jobs, but also changed the trajectory of African Americans in Africa, because he said that I will tell the Federal Reserve to issue the funding, and then it has to be issued, and then it has to be bought, and then it has to be implemented. Those are all jobs, just right there. Just with that, that's jobs. Okay, rebuilding homes rebuilds lives, because that puts in the jobs. Okay, jobs are a lifeblood of people that you have some income that you have. And so what we are doing is setting up a trust. And that trust, okay, will be used for the next 100 years to create those jobs, create that change in people's lives. And we hope that you join us as we go through this. We're getting ready to hear from Dr. Garvey. Okay, he's going to come on and talk about one of the progenitors to this, his father. And we look forward to joining us on the air. Okay, and hearing Dr. Garvey speak about and giving a part to his father. But what we're asking as FAU is not only the best that you can do, Mr. President, is that you can have it so that we, the people of the United States, that we have this economic infusion that comes through your actions. Only you can do this. Nobody else can do this. Just the President of the United States. All right. And so we're just going to get ready here for Dr. Garvey to come on the line. Okay. And we are supporting this effort by Dr. Garvey. We will give you more information on it. Okay. And let's see. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered reform right now. Now, by the way, the Zimbabwe government reform is something that the government is available. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, everything is good.
And it's something that we worked with the government of Zimbabwe. See, what people forget is that President Mugabe had this a problem was that the United States did not live up to what he said that they were going to do with $1 billion. He would not appropriate the land. See something.
Pretty good change, but
Yeah.
oh, it's
Yes, here we go. Watch that.
it's not shocking. I used to think on the right, it's actually on when I'm really getting to the left hand side.
I'm having a problem.
It actually shifts.
We were talking negative about Zimbabwe, but seems to be a problem that when we were talking about Marcus Garvey. Just give me a second here. And that's the problem, it's not the positive they like to talk about. Okay.
It gets bad.
They like to talk about Ronald Reagan's racism.
Locked zone. If I keep just right amount of
Margaret
exercise.
Thatcher's racism and enmity to the man who became the prime minister of Zimbabwe, and then at a later date became the president currently of Zimbabwe. And
How long have you been here?
okay,
How long you went back?
well,
Nigeria? Oh, I've been here for.
and I'm having a problem getting this.
Georgia.
Georgia.
Okay.
Oh,
I mean, the line's open. Okay. If you have any comments that you'd like to make.
Yeah, I don't plan to leave Atlanta anytime soon, unless school.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I'm from the Caribbean. I studied in the Caribbean.
3 minutes ago.
Negotiations.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So maybe if they tell me to go out,
Here we go.
yeah, fence.
What do you think about the electrical grid in Nigeria?
Electrical problem.
The electrical grid, yeah, in terms of, like here, you got electric, you got internet, everything, the access, everything. How do you compare that to Nigeria?
You see, it's way better. It's way better here than Nigeria. Yeah, it's not something.
Wow.
Friends about us building some
Okay.
park.
Okay.
This is the guy on the phone now.
Okay.
But also doing
Apparently.
our thorium fuel power plants, solar panels, wind machines to generate power.
That's really interesting. They had no problem of letting me watch the video of against Zimbabwe, but they have a lot of problem about the video on Marcus Garvey. Okay, so they're not going to let me log in. Okay, and so, all right, we're headed live then.
Yeah, that's way to Nigeria. You can just, if you just do what, if you just make a plan and submit it.
All right. Like I said, I'm Chairwoman for the African Union. We are live, and we are broadcasting from the main public library in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are preparing by the end of this business day today to deliver to the President of the United States the proposal that we have for the issuance of $5 trillion in Coleman Road. Okay. All right. So we're going to have a discussion, give a briefing on what we're talking about. Okay, we've been joined by Robert Harris. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. Put yourself up again.
Right over you now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I give you permission to run over me if you need to. Okay.
Don't need to. Don't want to. Don't need to.
Don't need to. I appreciate you.
Task force.
Robert Harris is a acquaintance of mine. Probably, he's in a wheelchair because, he's been a long acquaintance of mine. He used to have hair when I
Yes, I started.
I took you through 1,200 lines of systematic change.
We grew out on this side.
I can understand.
Robert Harris is an inductee into the Ohio Civil Rights Hall of Fame, created during Model Cities, a unique program here that was here. Yes, several other cities. As consultant to the Egyptian Art Museum for disability, and as a consultant on disability issues because he helped create the ADA. I got a question for you on that.
Yes.
The ADA.
The American with Disabilities.
Yeah, people care. This is my therapy dog. Okay, we gotta have a discussion on that.
Well, we have to have a discussion on a lot of things because one of the things that's very interesting around the United States, and especially in the state of Ohio, but it's around the entire nation, and that is that so many of the amenities that we created are misused and even abused in some cases. And in some cases, they're just simply not understood. And we still have to discuss those things because we know in the state of Ohio, there are more disability parking placards issued than there are people with disabilities in the entire state of Ohio.
Really?
So we know that. And one of the things that people have been doing is that they go to the doctor and they say, I need this. And their doctor, instead of saying, no, you don't, or can you prove to me or explain to me why you need this, they go ahead and sign the little paper and they take it down and people get a disability parking placard. But they don't need it, and especially I know they don't need it because I see them parked in a disability parking space sprinting to wherever they want to go. Now, if you can sprint to where you want to go, after you pet then I know good and well you're lying. Or it's been a miracle healing. In which case, come and touch me. I would love to join you.
Hey, I got 7 heart attacks. Okay, with just last month having my 7th heart attack. So yeah, hallelujah. Come. Lay hands on me. All right, but like Saul, God put evil on Saul, and remember that the creation that we're in is what we're in, but we are not in a theocracy here in America. Rather, we're supposed to be in a government by, for, and of the people. So what we're talking about today, Robert, is that by the end of the day, we are going to be delivering a short message to President Obama. And that short message to the President, what we are going to say to him is right here, is that President Barack Obama, members of Friends of the African Union, followers in the tradition of Reginald Lewis, Reverend Dr. Leon Sullivan, Dr. Dorothy Hyatt, Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, Dr. Mary Bethune-Cookman, Harriet Tubman, and W.E. Du Bois propose that the United States government enter into a public-private partnership with the Friends of the African Union Global Stimulus Task Force that is to be formed on August 18, 2016 on a $5 trillion United States dollar 100-year solution to end institutionalized federal government racism against American citizens who are descendants of American slavery and institutionalized racism to African Americans. The public-private partnership shall be the first driven by parents for 55 million Americans and use a 100-year infinite delivery, infinite quantity, infinite quality program called the Daniels IDIQ. FAU will in 300 congressional districts and in every state through a local Friends of the African Union Global Stimulus Daniels IDIQ program, public-private partnership, implement a means-tested solution using a Friends of the African Union modified My Brother's Keeper Alliance playbook. Okay, now if that doesn't put you to sleep, I don't know what will. Okay, and so let me break it down to you. Okay, so the My Brother's Keeper is President Barack Obama's program, and so what President Obama did, he noticed that we needed to have a program that addressed for black males, for Native Americans, and Hispanic Americans up to age 25. He said those we got problems in River City. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so he issued an executive directive that covered everybody up to age 25, but he had a special focus on African Americans, mm-hmm. Native Americans, and Hispanic Americans. He said 6 things. He said, by the time you get to school, you should have good community support. He said, number 2, once you get in school, the school should work by the 3rd grade. You should know if it's working or if it's not working. If it's not working, you need to be able to change it, because by the time you're in the 3rd grade, if it ain't working, you set on a trajectory. By 4th grade, they planning for you how to go to prison. Okay, you know that famous prison to, was it school to prison pipeline? Okay, thank you, Ms. Alexander. You've identified the problem. Great, good speaker fees, love it. What's your solution? Okay, so this is the president's solution. Mm-hmm. He said that everybody should graduate by 12th grade.
I agree.
All right. And everybody, when he means everybody, that's why he went and changed the law for education, right? He changed the law. It's no longer every child succeeds is the law. It's not everything else that Bush did, gone. Learn from the best of it, learn, etc. Every child succeeds, okay? By 12th grade, now you should go into a workforce program, educational program that prepares you for a life of change. College, or accredited, training program, not a fly-by-night programs. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't necessarily fly by night, but they rip you off by night.
They're rip-off. They're rip-off. They're training people who are having difficulty to read and write to be brain surgeons, and that's not even possible.
Or real estate agents. Okay, you too can learn from the billionaire. Yes, you can read just like me. Just pay me $35,000 and I'll teach you. Yes. But go to the Mexican court judge and he'll tell you all about it because he released the papers. Okay, but the president of the United States said, 6 things, and once you graduate from that program, you should be able to, in the private sector, get a job. But if you don't have a private sector job, then maybe we should have a public sector job for you. So those 6 things are included.
And entrepreneurship is extremely important.
Yeah, and but remember, he's never made a payroll. Okay, so he didn't include that. That's us. That's why we say a FAU modified My Brother's Keeper Alliance playbook. So when he created this in 2014 as a government program, then in 2015 he created somebody created a nonprofit organization, and it just happens that the person who's in charge of the executive order has an assistant, and she left government service and became the CEO of the nonprofit that's called My Brother's Keeper Alliance. that has some kind of agreement between the White House and the nonprofit that went out and hired Deloitte Consulting to create a playbook for implementation by corporate America. Now, I don't know, but that seems rather interesting, okay? Especially seeing it's in 250 locations across the United States and 50 tribal units. Now, it's maybe a coincidence that our program is in 300 congressional districts, okay? Maybe, or maybe not, okay? But so what we're doing is we went to the My Brother's Keeper Alliance, okay? We formed it here in Cincinnati. We weren't part of the chosen beginning, even though we were part of the beginning. We weren't chosen to be one in the beginning because the city was under administration that, at best, you could say inactive in the black community, but look good, okay? But that's another story, okay? But we formed it with the idea that we could apply to the White House to be part of the initiative. Then we found out that you can't and maybe and well, and so at the end of the day, I called the White House, okay, and I said, can I speak to, okay, the head of the My Brother's Keeper program in the White House? And they said, who? and then finally I said, let me speak to the WAMO officer on charge. Is it?
What's that?
Well, see, I used to be Naval Telecommunications System Integration Command, and see, the White House switchboard is ultimately run by the White House Office of Military Affairs. Okay, and so there is always a military officer in charge, okay, of communications in the White House.
And what happened?
I got to listen to the man in charge.
With Dallin College, you got to
turns out to be the chief of staff of the president's cabinet.
Okay.
All right. and the program is set up with the cabinet directed to implement the My Brother's Keeper. So the black guy who meets with President Obama every day, who's in charge of his cabinet, not the chief of staff to the president, the chief of staff of his cabinet.
Okay.
Is the head Negro in charge. Okay, all right. And his executive is in the Department of Education. Okay. And we met with the new Department of Education, ain't Arnie Duncan anymore. It's head Negro in charge again. Okay, in the Department of Education. All right. And so, I called and I said, how do we here in Cincinnati join the My Brother's Keeper program? And said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to have the president issue $5 trillion worth of new debt. Okay, so that we can issue, I want the president to tell the Federal Reserve to buy $5 trillion worth of new debt, and we will have it issued by the Federal Reserve banks based on the model that we're going to do in Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, we're issuing $20 billion worth of new debt, including $6 billion for the sewer, $2 billion for 20,000 households at $100,000 a household, for $1 billion for 1,000 businesses at $1 million of business, et cetera. Things that we need to have done. Okay, here. And new debt that's issued and puts people to work. Okay? And, there was silence for, this is writing? Yeah. Okay. Could you send it to us? Yeah. Okay. And so, it was actually pretty funny because it sounded like he was like reading off of the stuff that we'd already sent into the alliance, okay, about us, okay. And if y'all think that those movies where Will Smith and other people, it's a made-up movie, well, that's a movie that only costs hundreds of millions of dollars. Think about it. I used to work at the DIA. It's not a bottomless pit, but they talk in billions. Okay, and so what we're going to do, from this day forward, we're going to issue this, and you know, we're going to say to the president, it's just a short, unexpected
We're looking at
proposal. That's called an unsolicited proposal. Okay, so an unsolicited proposal in the federal government is when, you know, they didn't put out an RFQ to say institutionalized federal government racism. All right? They didn't say, well, we want you to issue how do you end institutionalized federal government racism. But what we did is, because we're a United Nations civil society, we took the cue from the president, who in 2014 said through the State Department, tell you what, Universal Periodic Review, United Nations, everybody gets reviewed on human rights, and in the United States, we're going to classify everything in 10 categories, and the #1 category that the President's State Department said is that America is I paraphrase, of course, I'm saying, is a racist country. Now, he puts it more diplomatic. He's a constitutional lawyer. He says specifically, how he says it's quite interesting. You know, they say it in those 10 items. And let me get that. Here it is. Our submission is based on the United Nations protocols used by the United Nations Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights, and based on the 10 areas of human rights focus as put forth by the U.S. State Department. These are, #1, civil rights, ethnic and racial discrimination. Racist. Okay. #2 are criminal justice issues. All right. #3, indigenous issues. #4, national security. #5, immigration. #6, labor and trafficking. #7, economic, social, and cultural rights and measures. #8, the environment. #9, domestic implementation of human rights and treaties and international rights mechanisms. Now, #10 is where we got it when we did this. Okay. We said, oh, really? Now, see, you got to, #1, you got to be a UN agency. If you're in the UN, civil service, we're authorized to respond to this.
Vice President.
You got to know about it. Okay. Well, let's go back to #1. You would be surprised. There's 15,000 black organizations in America, and probably less than 100 are authorized by the United Nations as civil society. Yeah, I don't know where the NAACP, NAN, and the rest of them are, but they ain't one of them.
They're not on the list.
I look.
And I know, and knowing you with 1,200 lines, you look.
Yes.
That's only 100 people you have to look at.
Yeah, okay. You know, you just feel resentful because you lost your hair. Okay. See, what he's talking about, years ago, I was president of a nonprofit organization in 2005. And Robert came in and said, I'm going to be the chairman, and we're going to come together, and we're going to do this, and et cetera. And I put the Constitution in front of him and said, 1,200 friggin' lines? Okay. And I walked them through in months of line.
It took a while.
It
took a while for 1,200 lines.
Yeah, because there's a lot of questions. Y'all didn't just say here. Okay. So I'm back again. Okay. All right. And this time, I'm asking for the money directly. This time, I'm taking as management the role as the FAU chairman. Not because I want to, but because in 2012, on July 16th, I had another series of heart attacks, and God was very kind to me because I'm still here. But everybody else gets to see the light. Me, I get a room. And, you know, like the old Dewey Decimal System. You know, you open a drawer, it's like Star Trek on one end, on the other end, it's like the old Dewey Decimal System with the cards, okay? And because, you know, I grew up in Warren and, you know, Niles at a presidential library, and I was a strange kid who walked from Warren to Niles to take a look and live in the library, okay? Very strange kid. Not gone far as an adult. But anyway, so I get this message. You have been blessed being a cryptologist. You've been blessed to live in Egypt and Spain and Italy and Greece and sail the 7 seas as an able-bodied seaman and a radar and communications and and you're still living, even though, you could have been a little bit more graceful for me when computer changed. We were competing with Dell and a place called CDW and them in the early part of the 80s. And if we would have made it, we didn't make it. Okay, so I got some Confederate paper. Okay, used to be worth $20 million. Now it's good for all that. So here we are, and I lived through this. And God said, "Okay, die." And I said, "Well, this is interesting." Okay, heart attack. I'm dying, and I don't get to see the light. What my responsibility is, what I've been given. Okay, and I guess I was stubborn because they had to shock me twice to bring me back. Okay. And out of that, I've taken the responsibility of where we are as a people. We are big bad black people. We're the most powerful black people on the planet, and we don't act like it. We earned $1 trillion last year, which is more money than they earned in Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt. Okay?
That's a lot.
All right?
We
don't act like it. All right? We got people, our agenda is set by people like Black Lives Matter. Okay, the Democratic platform that they just had right now. Okay, there's only 2 places that we are mentioned, and one of them has Black Lives Matter. Well, Black Lives Matter ain't accepted in Africa. Okay, see, I'm politically correct. Okay, all right, but our agenda is being set by them. They don't know anything about this quantitative easing, and apparently they don't know anything about what the president does, like when he's the president. So when the police act up, he forms a task force that comes up with recommendations of best policing, and that's what you use for making sure that the law that is managed by the contract that the government that you have of, by, and for the people has a contract, okay, with the police force, and that is in line with the best practices for policing. And if they violate that, and you can't get them on a criminal act, like you couldn't get Darren Wilson, because there was no hands up, there was no I'm surrendering. And he did try to kill the officer, okay? But, the police force was off the chain. So the president couldn't get Darren Wilson, but the police force, okay, they off the chain and he got him. All right, why? Because he said this, when you manage the police, you manage them through contracts, because they're your employees, and if they violate those contracts in a criminal matter, that's one way, but if you violate the use of force in another way, then that's an employment matter, and you can get fired. Okay? So he's got that in place. We're ignoring it here in Cincinnati, as well as all across the nation. Okay? But I mentioned that because the number 2 issue that he said was criminal justice.
Right.
And see, we were the first organization that put Mike Brown into the Human Rights Commission in Geneva on September 15th, 2014, when the grand jury was still giving their report. And thank God it happened in Missouri, because the grand jury in Missouri, the results of that can be made public, unlike in Pennsylvania, where the Attorney General leaked grand jury reports and just got convicted of being a criminal. Okay, all right, but in Missouri, you can release those reports, and I read them. Okay, I was trained by Colonel Charles Britton, who wrote the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy for Betty Montgomery. All right, so I read, the report, and anybody who reads the report says, okay, Mike Brown, love you, brother, but, you don't come to a gunfight armed with nothing but the cigarillos that you just stole. Okay, all right? You just don't do that. Not, and did Darren Wilson pull him into the car? I don't know. I do know that he tried to kill Darren Wilson. Okay. The report says so. test says something. He said, President Obama sent in the FBI. I mean, you know, he had over 70 FBI agents and attorney generals coming in. All right. And so now, here we are in 2016, and we're still letting that ride us when we have examples like we had in Cincinnati where we have videos where they're off the chain. Okay? And so in those cases, we get out in the street and we boom. But, you know, my ask when I asked the sister who helped create Black Lives Matter at Malcolm's birthday on May 19th is, have you read the report for the recommendations on the 21st Century Policing Task Force of the President of the United States? Oh, I'm reading it. That report came out last year. Okay? Oh, she's reading it now. Oh, great. All right. So we're sort of a different organization, FAU. We believe in substance change that can happen based on the authority that the president has right now to tell the Federal Reserve to buy debt, and that we can generate that debt that makes a change in the lives of everybody in the United States, because we're going to deploy a drone fleet. Okay? And that drone fleet, now welcome to 1984, okay? You know, George Orwell has nothing on us, all right? So
you're talking about the drones that can spot, that can take action. And that
well, no, actually, it's funny because I'm talking about the passive drones.
Okay.
I'm in a fight with the FAA. No,
Okay.
the FAA, yeah, but we are in a fight with the FAA to let us arm the drones, but they won't, you know, right now we can't, you know me too well, but, you know, but right now we can in Cincinnati deploy a drone fleet that can tie into, they're putting in ShotSpotter here in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's that?
ShotSpotter is a military technology that lets you triangulate any shot that's fired. Okay.
That's good.
And deploy. Okay. And so under this, we would have a constant drone fleet in, and when it's spot, you know, we come over. If it's night, we infrared. If it needs look through, but you know, we've asked the FAA if we can also arm the drones. Okay, and you know, so far they said no, and so now it's working through the federal court. Okay, another part of me, I'm part of the National Association of Black Veterans. I'm the and so there's plus of us, over 4,000 veterans, and so bringing it together. Okay, that's where we are. All right. Here's the man I needed down here before. Okay, all right. Hey, how you doing, Carlos? Okay, all right. Hey, brother. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while.
All right, how you doing?
Okay, all right.
Oh,
pull up
hello.
a chair,
How
y'all.
are you?
Okay, all right. So let's.
Good. How you doing?
Yeah. So. All right. Oh, let's see where we are. Okay. All right, so I guess.
Get an image here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we're mostly recording this. Originally, I had it set up so that we would be watching right now Dr. Garvey. All right. So I spoke to him today, Marcus Garvey's son. All right, and so I said that we had a good discussion. And see, I used to be a member of his father's organization for 41 years. But when I went out to do this and Friends of the African Union, I had to leave that organization because it is an organization African for the Africans. It's a racist organization. That's not bad. Because remember when he was doing it, Africa was colonialized, and the reason he was persecuted is because he scared them, because he got blacks organized by the tens of thousands and had 25,000 veterans marching down New York in Harlem. Okay, sort of scared them when you got 10,000 ambulances. This is the 1920s. He got 10,000 ambulances and nurses and a colonel, okay, from the U.S. Army. Because don't forget, during World War I, where my grandfather served, when we went over to Europe, okay, that Blackjack person didn't want to command us, so he gave us over to the French and the British, and we kicked ass. Okay.
Well, that's how he got his name, Blackjack.
Yeah. You know, we ain't even gonna go there, but if I would, yeah, okay, all right. So here we are. Today, we're going to later this afternoon give to the president saying, Mr. President, we want you to use the authority that you have to help your people. We want your name to go down in history for actually doing a long-term change, because we'll take the responsibility of generating the debt. We're going to use Cincinnati as the demonstration. You know, we've been working long and hard years to use Cincinnati and all that, you know, whether it be the sewer, whether it be plant in Cincinnati, whether it be housing, whether it be disabilities. Okay, we've been working long and hard. And people were telling me last night, why y'all concentrating on Cincinnati? It's because in 2001, okay, we had a boycott that cost $200 million worth of economic damage, took out a 5-star restaurant, 4-star, 2 hotels, and they made a change in the use of force in the police force. That is the model that's used throughout the nation right now. Okay, but what we didn't do, we didn't keep up on it. We didn't keep it so that the police force here are bold enough, okay, to be saying that you got to pay us extra to hold the body cameras. Okay, you're bold enough to say that they're going to get a 5% increase, but you're not going to have any better quality of how you do your policing. So I want to hold them to that 21st century policing task force and say best practices for policing. I want them to be able to citizen complaint authority, instead of having 1 investigator by law, they're supposed to have 5. I want them to live to the law. You know, and for them to live to the law, that means we got to come out and vote. Yes.
And that's really one of my big pet peeves, is that we talk a lot, but we don't go to put our voice where it really matters, and that's on that ballot. And we have the power.
We have the power.
We have the numbers. We have the power. We just need to exercise our will, exercise our responsibility, and our right, and just take action.
All right. And when we talk about taking action, there we go. Carl Brown Foundation. Okay, talking about action.
You get action.
Okay. All right. And you know, brother, okay, we haven't talked about this. Is the other part. This is business. Okay. All right. There's street action and action in the legislation, but there's also economic development that begets employment. Okay, and employment changes your life. Okay, that you got some money coming in. So this is what it's all about. You know. So what we're doing today is that the website is set up. Okay, right now. So that we get your name, but by the 27th of August, it get not only your name, but it's a partnership that we're going to have with those of you who are in FAU, but those that we look to bring in FAU. It says that, Mr. President, if you get this on your side done, what we're going to do, we've got these businesses such as yours, such as yours, such as yours, such as mine, that is ready to implement this, that we have signed agreements that you do this, and then we'll implement it. Why will we implement it? Because we already have done a $500 million worth of small business administration loans. Okay? We're not doing this just starting up. See, this is, you know, we have a model in the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. FAU, Friends of the African Union, is a member of the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. And so I've been there for 14 or so years, okay? And so it's not something that we're just starting up, okay? We're not just saying, Mr. President, write a check for us for $5 trillion, and we got this. Rather, what we're saying to him is that, Mr. President, a group that is numbering in the hundreds now, and that by the time that we're through and meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus next month, hopefully numbering in the tens of thousands, maybe in the hundreds of thousands, but that in October 15th, by the celebration of the October 15th, the Million Man March, that we should have 1 million of us coming together to say to Mr. President, we got disagreements to do this, and we're going to take care of our own, okay? And these are plans that are vetted by the Key Bank, Huntington, and other banks who have already signed community benefit agreements. So Huntington and Key Bank have said that they're going to increase their lending as part of a community benefit agreement with NCRC and members like us for $32.6 billion in January 2017. So the short is, I'm going to take your business and take his and take ours and et cetera under those agreements, no matter what. Okay? But Mr. President, if you issue the authority for the Federal Reserve to buy the debt, what our plan does is create 7 million jobs. What our plan does, it gets the lead out of 27 million homes. What our plan does, it does the problem that they defunded for doing the sewers while keeping the mandate, and then said, well, we want to get rid of the Clean Water Act because it's causing too much of a burden. Well, it's causing too much of a burden because you cut the money out. Okay? Well, hi there, Mr. President. You want to keep your signature program, okay, the Affordable Care Act, because it's dying. I mean, there was a poison pill put into the Affordable Care Act that lets Aetna and United Healthcare withdraw from the program, and because they're losing a couple $100 million. Okay, so Aetna says we withdraw, and that poison pill was put in there. So, Mr. President, when you do this, we'll give you the example of Cincinnati, where we had our health department do a study that shows if you live in South Fairmount, you will live 20 years less than if you live in Hyde Park. We'll address that. We'll take that responsibility. Okay, Mr. President, what's your question, Mr. President, of why you don't want to do this? Now, if you don't want to do this, I understand that you don't care about America. If you don't want to do this, I understand that your legacy doesn't mean anything to you. If you don't do this, Mr. President, because we're using your playbook. We're using your playbook that you hired Deloitte Consulting for corporate America. Well, instead, we are the corporate body of the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. You know, those people who were brought here involuntarily, we ain't no immigrants. We were the slaves that America built its wealth on. And we are their descendants. And our government through 1965 was against us at the federal government level. And we're asking by this one issuance that you remediate this by reinvesting in us. We're not asking for reparations, which requires an act of Congress. And see, I still understand why Daniels and the rest of the reparations crowd still doing that, because it requires an act of Congress. If they think that they're going to get Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell to do reparations for $19 trillion, good luck. And you know,
But it would definitely be illegal anyway.
yeah, yeah. While you're at it, Mr. President, could you keep classifying marijuana? Okay, because that puts us. Bill Clinton put us in jail because of the change, because he wanted to be reelected. Okay, so he compromised. Now, he didn't put the legislation in for 3 strikes. but when the Republicans put it in, he didn't fight it. Okay, and so, you know, it's nice that his wife says in the Democratic platform that they'll address it. They say they'll eliminate it, but they'll address issues. Well, Mr. President, you can address a whole bunch of issues by issuing $5 trillion worth of authority for the Federal Reserve to buy debt. What we did to do this is that for the past year, Mr. President, with Business Forward, okay, Walmart and all of that, I've been part of that. FAU has been part of that, talking to your administration. Wrapped it up yesterday, okay, with the Department of Transportation, which has selected 78 cities to do advanced intermodal transportation solutions. And in Ohio, Columbus is one of the finalists. Mr. President, you do this, and we're just going to take all 78 cities. They all submitted plans. Mr. President, you do this, we'll buy the post office. Okay? You know, yeah, I know it costs $300 billion. This is what they did. The Republicans said the Postal Service, they got an unfunded liability for the pensions on the 600,000 workers they got. They got to fund that pension. I have no business in America, okay, funds the post, you know, their pension to 100% because corporate America has been raiding the pension funds since the 1950s. Oh, they're going to let us do this? Well, you know, boys, be quiet, shut up, and raid, and use that money to create non-union jobs. Okay, that's been happening since the 1950s. But Mr. President, what they did with the U.S. Postal Service is they said you got to pay $5.5 billion a year. Well, the Postal Service don't make $5.5 billion a year. Okay, but you got to pay that each year. Okay, and you got to pay it, so now it's over. You know, they've been paying it, they can't pay it anymore. They lose the money because of it. You buy this, Mr. President, into what we're doing, and we'll buy the Postal Service with you. We'll $300 billion. We'll pay you from, you know, we'll issue the debt. And then you can take that debt in those 78 cities, and you can create like what we're suggesting in Cincinnati, intermodal transportation, where you got walking, you got biking, right? You got a streetcar up to the zoo. You got we got plans on the shelf, Mr. President, that we can implement, and that always that creates jobs, and that creates jobs in the Black community, because we will take responsibility for the brothers and sisters like we did in Oregon, where the governor just approved the reentry program for FAU Oregon inside the prison. But he knows it's a prison.
But we also take a good look at true light rail, not just a streetcar, but true light rail that will carry people from the inner city areas through and out to where the jobs really are.
And that, remember I said 20 billion here. Remember, you know, when we first met, we were both pro, the light rail program. The difference was you were like Marion, including the county. Me, I was in the city and said, and sure enough, we passed it in the city, but the county said, we don't want them to know.
Well, that's exactly what the problem was. We had to also deal with, and not only racism, but the classism that says we don't want poor people here.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, also, we have an attitude that I call the Mr. Scrooge attitude, the Mr. Scrooge philosophy. Anybody who have ever read The Christmas Carol, there was a statement in there when the people came and said to Mr. Scrooge, what about those who are poor and needy and are deprived? What should we do? And his answer was, let them die and decrease the surplus population. Unfortunately, that is the attitude that is veiled, but it's here. Let them die. We'll live off of their backs. But we don't want them to have a piece of the pie, and we certainly don't want them to own the bakery. You know, they might not want pie. They might want cupcakes or something else.
Sweet Carlton has experience. Okay. Carlton, why don't you tell a little bit about your background?
Yes, you know, I've walked through the valley of the shadow of death all my life. I have experience the things that you see in the documentaries that happen to African people when being locked in prisons, or when they take you into jail, or when you're being criminalized as a youth, when you're being criminalized as an adult, as a young adult, when you're being criminalized as an adult for the way you walk, for the way you talk, for clothes that you wear, for the information that you like to acquire and communicate with others. It's so sad that, you know, our own neighbors around us put action behind this and refuse to share the resources of Africa with the rest of humanity. It's very, very sad, you know, and I bear witness to it every day. You know, there was a study done here in the city on zip codes, and I live in St. Baltimore Hills, and if you live across town in the European part, which is called the High Part by the zip code, they live 20 years longer than us across town. And it's the same template all over the country. If you go into an African neighborhood in Atlanta, if you go into an African neighborhood in Florida, if you go into an African neighborhood here in Cincinnati, Ohio, they will look identical. No economic investment in the community, in the children, for their futures. But there are solutions to these things. There are solutions such as my brother's keeper and the Alliance. There are solutions whatever they do Cincinnati. And I just want to tell you a little bit more than this about how the Carson Brown Foundation started and why we what I do for the people. And you see my actions. Just follow me on Facebook, page Cincinnati Carson Brown Foundation action page. And it's about my mother. This lady who was sick her whole life. She was so sick that she couldn't even get a license to drive a car because she had to have permission from her doctor. Disease, cancer, glaucoma. She had a blood disease. She was on a breathing machine in the morning, 3 times a day, with all types of medicine. She had so many medicines, I couldn't count them out. But she opened the door to all people. She would help people in the community, young ladies struggling with a child, whatever, one of my brother's girlfriends or whatever, and she would assist them until they could get back on their feet, get a job, and get out and get their own housing and some type of way to take care of themselves. So, you know, I take it personal because I learned from my mother it was all about the information they received that gave them more decisions about their future. So, you know, that's what the Carson Brown Foundation is about. It's about outreach intent and have an educational version up on the Carson Brown Foundation on Facebook and also up on YouTube, Walk for Humanity educational version. Get up there because it's one thing that we all have is human resource management on the inside. We can find 1,000 reasons why we can't do something. There's nothing we can't do. So that is the motto for the Carson Brown Foundation, my brother's keeper, and also Friends of the African Union, because we are one people, we are one voice, and we are one human family, and you will always see that in action. You'll just take a chance.
Do me a favor, I'm sure you are posting, okay, in terms of this. If you find it on your Gmail, please post it. We're taking questions. We're live. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes because Dr. Garvey, what they did is that I was going to have Dr. Garvey, we would watch what he was saying. Okay, but because they would let me Mugabe attacking Robert Mugabe, they won't let me watch live. Okay, Garvey asking for the pardon because it's also C-SPAN, and you got to sign in by your code for your cable provider. Okay, and I forgot about that, and I forgot what my password was. So when I originally got it, okay, I had the cable, and now I forgot what my Time Warner password is. But we will know better. Okay, and life is good because we have a chance to do this before we transition. So we're older. And remember, yes, I know, Robert, I'm a decade younger than you. Okay, yeah, you're looking at me like, hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah, we're getting older.
Yeah. It's a privilege granted to few. Okay.
I'm happy about it. For it.
Yeah, exactly. And so the privilege that we have being here in Cincinnati, the privilege that in meeting you, which in working with Carlton over these past 2 years, meeting young brothers like yourself who want to move forward and get things done positively. The Bible says what? 2 or more gathered in his name? Something like that.
Well, it says, if 2 or more gather in my name, I will be in the midst. So God is with us.
There you go. And for those of us who don't have any question, they questioned him and he said, well, I'll still let you live, but you got the time, okay, to do right, okay? So for all those times that I was an able-bodied around the world, and I didn't do right.
With me, it goes even farther because when I was 8 months old, I contracted meningitis, and the doctor said I had 3 days to live. And now that was in 1946. We're talking 2016, and at the end of this month, on the 27th of this month, I'll be 70. All my doctors that said I would be dead, and they even predicted that I would not be able to do anything because I ran such high temperatures that my brain was supposed to be burned out, so that my intellectual functions were supposed to be somewhere close to 0 to -10. My sight was supposed to be gone. My hearing was supposed to be gone. And I wasn't supposed to be able to walk. I would be paralyzed. Well, they were right on one of them. I've never walked, but a good friend of mine said it years ago, and he gave me the very best compliment. He said, my friend Robert, he can't walk, but he sure can run. Yeah, I've been running now for 70 years. And I'm just.
How's your son, Robert?
How old is my son? Well, he'll be 34 on September the 17th. And he wasn't supposed to be here because the doctors also said about my late wife, Gloria, that she had sarcoidosis, cousin disease to lupus. It attacks more black women than white, almost very few men in comparison. But they gave her up when she was 12 years old when she contracted, very early age to contract it, and by 17, 37. The doctor said we couldn't have any children. 6'2", size 15 shoe, healthy as all get out, son. So, the system and I, we don't get along together. I have defied it all my life, and I am not done yet because I'm on my 70th birthday, which everyone is invited to on the 27th, my halfway point. I can do another, by the grace of God, I'll do another 70.
So we need to reserve the room on the 27th?
Well, I've got a little, Dr. Robert Lee Akita, a good friend of mine, on a little party for me at his house, and everybody's invited. In fact, I brought a a little brochure with me today, a little flyer to come to his house.
Okay.
From 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. or beyond. You know, just bring love. Don't need to bring any gift. Just bring your love and bring your action. Give your gift by taking care of your poorer or needier brother or sister. All I need.
All right.
Because to God be the glory.
There you go. But I'm still going to see if the room is available earlier. Okay. Because I've got to do the conference call on that, but I know where I'll be a little bit later in the evening. All right. So here's what we are. Okay. We're friends of the African Union. Okay. You can go to AU6 .info. That's Alpha Uniform number 6.info. We're a civil society organization. That means in the world don't have nonprofit. Okay, you civil society, you're gonna take your losses or whatever. We ain't giving you any tax breaks. In America, you get a tax break. Rest of the world, you don't get any tax break. Okay, all right, and so we're in the United Nations. As I said, you know, we were the first organization in the United Nations to take Mike Brown and his case, and we didn't know what the ultimate was until 2000. Okay, what was it? 2015, when they came out with the report from the Department of Justice that said, you know, hey, Darren Wilson, innocent. Police force guilty as all get out. Okay, all right, and they held them to a standard. We have to work within the construct. Now, if they don't work within that construct, then we come in and say, okay, this is the law. You ain't obeying the law. You ain't doing the right. Then, you know, we march hand in hand, okay, from the Nation of Islam, okay, to us committed Christians, to atheists, to Black Lives Matter, okay. We march all together. But we don't do the Black Lives Matter bit where you don't do the fundamentals of what the law is, because if we forget the law, then we could easily slip back to pre-1965. And before 1965, the law was against us officially. We lived in that. I remember going across America with my father, who was lucky enough to be an FHA guy, and he had money and et cetera, and stirred in the Shaker Heights. So they made the sacrifice, and we were going to Disneyland, no Disney World. And we the only place we could stay, because my father wasn't going to go to any, he was going to go Howard Johnson's. That was the only place that would let a Black man and his family walk in the front door. Okay. What's up? Okay. The Soul of Black. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
18. This is from the house.
Yeah.
From out the house.
So what you're going to meet is King Joseph Du Bois of the Du Bois family. Okay.
My king.
And he is a full-fledged king from Ghana and Liberia. Now he's the only Black man in America who has 31.25 square miles of land in Africa.
Whoa,
on
how
the
many
coast.
miles?
31.25 miles.
Wow.
It's bigger. Okay, Cincinnati's only 77 square miles. He's got 31.25. Okay, wow. All right. That's, me and Carlton, okay, we accepted him as our king within, and he's also the chairman of the Friends of the African Union Chamber of Commerce. Okay, so now we're working out the agreements how this will work. But FAU in LA is doing Peace in the Hood. What we're doing there is the Crips and the Bloods, okay, and the others. But we also have M13. Oh yeah, we got, now the dichotomy is you got the OGs who are locked up and the boys out on the street, and there's some disconnect, between who obeys who. Okay, all right.
It's free. Like, I can do what I want right now.
Yeah, but then the ones who are in jail says they doing too much of what they want,
Right.
and all of a sudden
And not
there's
what we want.
Okay, and, you know, so we got the first crew started signing peace agreements.
Okay, great.
Okay, all right, and so you know where we're going to move that in labor, because like I said, Oregon has it coming out of the prison. The brother who's in the prison who's organizing in terms of FAU in the prison reentry program. So the whole idea of Mr. President of the United States is that we'll take responsibility. First, in like here in Ohio, it costs $23,000 to put a man in prison per year. Well, we can, you know, get 21. Can we do that for 21,000? Can we run that prison cheaper, better, faster? Can we make it like Steve Austin, the $6 million man? Can we retool that prisoner coming out? Now, this is what I told them in California.
Go ahead.
All right. So I can build a prison where you can't get out. I'm the business development director for Hargrove Engineering, and Fred designed the Supermax prison in Youngstown. Okay, and so he also designs for the U.S. Army biosafe labs that get the bugs that they develop. Okay, and that never get out. Prison where you can't get out. All right. Now, what's inside that prison? All right. So you go and you go from the lockdown, never going to get out people. Okay. For those who are socialization in that, and does their family want to be in there with them? Okay. All right. And we can create a city within a city. And see, the reason that like in Ohio, like in other states, that these prisons are out in the country, it's not only the green space for when you build a prison makes it cheaper, but also you're able to move then the prisoners out into states and areas where the money follows the prison. Because now if your county had 100,000 people and now you add 4,000 prisoners, well, all the money that the census counts, you now have 104,000 people, and you're going to receive money for 104,000 people, but 4,000 of them, they ain't ever going to use that money, so that's now your money. Yeah. All right. And so, you know, and it's also jobs for them, okay, who are going to vote for you because that's there. Okay. So now, you know, what we're doing and what we said in California, that what we do costs $65,000 to keep somebody in Supermax. Okay, in California.
In California.
In California, 50-some thousand here in Ohio. Okay, all right. And so what we can do is that, you know, how do we do a program that lets you come out of prison as a whole man or woman? Okay, and so in Hamilton County, we have, and again, I'm sorry if I keep saying Hamilton County because we got this stuff. It's bad here that the Republicans hired an ex-felon who reformed herself, and they hired her, and she ran a model program. Yes. So good that the federal government said, snatch.
We want her.
All right, and the Department of Justice said, I don't care what you got in the background. I know what you got now. I know what you're doing now. Okay, hired her, but the program and the format is still here. So this is where we use the things like what Carlton's about to show, Plan Cincinnati. Okay, see, Cincinnati has an urban plan. It's called Plan Cincinnati. And so in that plan, okay, as part of President Obama's My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge, we'll update Plan Cincinnati using the original, process that I spent 3.5 years on this program. Me, Fred, Heather, we went to every meeting between the three of us. We went to every meeting, every planning session for 3.5 years. Now it's time. Now the planning department says it only costs $75,000 to update this.
Okay, so we're going to ask corporate Cincinnati as part of My Brother's Keeper, to fund My Brother's Keeper, and we'll pay for the update of this. We'll take that responsibility. Only thing corporate Cincinnati or its employees have to do is, because we have the 501c3, is make the donation so that we do that, and so we get it done. Again, using the tools the president put out there, the 21st century police with the police, the smart city program, that's how we erase the digital divide. The EPA and the sewers, okay, that's how we do over $800 billion worth of work in the sewers and get it done. Air scrubbers, okay, for the air quality, okay, we have over 20 chemical plants here, okay, and we use that authority to create 7 million jobs, to help 2 million businesses. That's a stimulus bar none. And so, again, we're going to issue this paper today. All right, and then we're going to work on it for the next 10 days. All right, this is day one, 10-day countdown to your birthday. Now, I didn't know that says how God works. Okay, I didn't know it was going to be his birthday.
Yeah, on the 27th.
Yeah, but see, what we knew is we were going to be meeting Africa on the 27th. Okay, because Africa never forgot us, but they had to get rid of them first. Then from the Organization of African Unity in 1963, and then by 99, they had gotten rid of it. And then there was a movement to move into the AU, the African Union, and a united government happened because of a lot of things. But here we are in 2016, there is a plan. And President Obama signed off on it. Okay, and I knew about it because in 2012, they let me into the U.S. Africa business meeting, me and Fred, and said everybody else can't come. I tried to get you and other people, they said, yeah, you can come. I need help. They're going to let me come in. You said, well, can I come in? And I tried. I said, no, just you and Fred. Okay. I said, and you gave me the help that started me on that way, because President Obama, since he's been in office, has been taking the young leaders of Africa and having meetings with them and coaching them. And some people don't like to say, oh, Pax America. Well, what the? Okay, I'm sorry. We earn over $1 trillion because we Americans. Okay, all 1.2 billion people may earn $3 trillion. 5 million or less, and we earn $1 trillion. Okay.
So the power is there, the ability is there.
We have the revenue. But we don't have the focus. See, I grew up in Shaker Heights, right? Okay, so a dollar is spent in the Jewish community, is spent by a Jewish household, is $1, maybe $2 spent in the Jewish community. Because it goes circle, because I'm going to go eat, I'm going to go to the deli, I'm going to go buy clothes, all from people who are like me. We don't even make it to $1. Okay, of the $1 trillion that we make, our businesses earn, let's say, charitably $130 billion. Okay, and those businesses, half of that only comes from us.
Some other statistics that are even more powerful, because a really good person, a friend of mine, is in the city. This is 10 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago. But she was pointing out that if we spend $1 in our own community, more, and that's a lot. And 2 is a lot. 4 is even better. But the problem is that we have to learn how to support ourselves. We don't realize what we have. Or if we do realize it, we're not taking action on it. So I don't think we realize it.
Well,
It's more, here's where the devastation comes in.
Mhm.
In the 1950s, our agenda was run by people who never made payroll.
Oh, yeah,
The
and I
ministers,
understand. Yeah,
right?
and
They said what? Integration. So for integration meant that when we had segregation and unequalness, we had the dry cleaner, we had the doctor, we had everybody in the community. We had the business.
I could go literally, you wouldn't even have to go down the street, but because I would see it in my community. The teacher of the school was in my community. The doctor, the lawyer lived in a better place than I did, but he was still, she was still in the community. So I had hope. I had aspirations. I had a role model. And then when people decided, okay, well, we can now legally restrict it.
a talented 10th
Yes.
left immediately. Now, see, I'm a product of that. Okay, my father was third in to Shaker Heights. Okay, and that was him and his wife sacrificed to taxes, covenants, and all that. Okay, they went in. That means that Cleveland adult votes, and yeah, we did 11th congressional, and yeah, all that, and et cetera. But that means that classism. And we had that's the breakup of W. Du Bois and Garvey. Okay, when Garvey was the mass and Du Bois was the talented 10, and don't seem that the talented, you remember the talented 10 were usually light skinned, which means that they were the prodigy of master who's raped, an African woman and then enslaved his children. Slavery was, an economic thing. Okay.
Yeah, strong economic.
All right. And so that's all we're asking the president. We're asking the president to say, we know this history, Mr. President. You know this history. You're a constitutional lawyer. Okay. So under the Constitution of the United States is a treaty. Okay. That's still in force from 1885 that created Africa. Okay. That treaty is still in force. You go to the U.S. State Department, and each year it issues a book called Treaties in Force. And in that book, you will find in 2012, 14, 15, but we use 2012, and you will find that the Treaty of Berlin of 1885 is still in force. So that means that we as African Americans have an international treaty responsibility for the continent of Africa, as represented by the African Union. Now, I'm looking around in 2014, I'm saying, okay, oh, wow, okay. I never looked at it like that. Because remember, I'm 41 years in the UNIA, and now I've had to leave the UNIA because I'm now dealing with real politics, in the 21st century. And so I'm, I'm reading everything, okay? I'm, digesting literally 4,000 pages of reading and coming up with this conclusion. And somebody, I'll be glad to debate them. Crowd, how are you going to get that stuff passed? Okay, tell me, how are you going to rise up in the mass? Well, okay, that don't mean jack if you can't get confidence.
If you're talking about it in terms of the actual, just simple population, there's not enough to make it move.
There's not enough votes.
Yes.
With our allies, okay, to get it through, much let alone, the way they're going about it. Because remember, when Congress, Randall and the rest of them, the old lions in Congress were the head of committees, they had to move this forward. Move it forward. Committee chairman. And bring all those insurance companies right on up there and stuff that we did in the African Union when we authorized
authorized in 2013, October 8th through the 10th through CARICOM, and we said, you go first because you're government. The Caribbean nations, you go first, and you sue England first, you sue Arabia second, and then you sue the African nation states and tribes third, and then you come over and we'll deal with the Americas of the United States. We reserve to deal with our government because how we deal with our forefathers is different than how you deal with it. Okay, but we in the Americas, all of us deal with those in Britain and Portugal and Europe who ran it, but it wasn't just them, the Arabs, okay, to this day allows slavery. I mean, Christianity grew out of slavery, okay? You know, there's no Christian state I know of that allows slavery legally. There are plenty of Arab states that allow slavery. In Africa, there's 20 million slaves in Africa right now. We don't have to guess. All right, in 2013, with Tom Heffley and his church in the Treasury, we sent in people in Mauritania. I don't have to guess. That's why what we're doing in terms of the Goree Island project as part of this, Mr. President, is that we're going to buy every slave out of slavery. Say for moral good. Okay, moral good if you're a slave owner. How much? Okay, we figured about, we went in about $1,200 a slave, 20 million slaves. Okay, and $34 billion. Where we deposit the check? Okay, and then we got to restart the class. That's where the king comes in with his 31.25 square miles. Okay.
Have a homeland, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's in the Constitution, don't you know? In Liberia, remember, Liberia, Sierra Leone was started for us because they wanted to send the Africans back home. I mean, the only reason that Lincoln dropped out of that, okay, was because he was losing the war and he needed the 200,000 Africans who became the backbone of the Union Army to kick their ass. Okay, those who were rebelling against the Union and the idea of freedom. And when they captured us, it was a bad situation. Okay, but we had 200,000 of us who fought that war. Don't forget the first guy in America's first revolution. Remember, there's two revolutions. George Washington was the traitor to the crown because he was the king's man and he was the 1% of his day. And so he carried out a rebellion that said, we, the 1%, will create a new country and the rest of y'all come along with us. But if you don't own any land, you can't vote. Okay, you don't own any land, you can't vote. George Washington, because he risked it all in his revolution. And if he'd have failed, like some of the other leaders that the British would have caught him, they would have killed him.
Well, he would have been dead.
Yeah. Him, his sons. I mean, there's many of those, but they were slave owners. He was the only slave owner who, at his death, freed the slaves. Jefferson, no, he kept his wife's sister in slavery for her whole life. Okay, all right. His wife's sister was a slave because his wife's father raped an African woman, and then that child then cared for her sister as her maid. And some of us say he did more to care for her once his wife died. Okay, but the DNA, proves it's from his family. They try to say it's the uncle. The history says it was him. Okay, so we have all that history. Mr. President, you know all this history. What we're asking the President of the United States to do is to provide a reinvestment for Americans so that we will make America great again. In the idea of freedom, we're great in the conceptualization of liberty. We're great in the empowerment of human rights. When it comes to us, you got a little problem on implementation. When it comes to Native Americans, you've broken hundreds of treaties. All those immigrants, even being politically correct, okay? We ain't immigrants, okay? But the immigrants that you've hired since 1965, when we got uppity, okay, and had the federal government now not on our backs, all of a sudden it became cool for Mexicans and Hispanics and everybody to come on in. Up until then, the immigration law said, oh, but now it's became cool. Now we got 11 million foreigners in the country. We used to have the construction industry. We were just moving into it, getting the good money. I don't have to guess, because Ronald Reagan in Virginia, okay, and in DC, you know, you could go and get yourself some carpenters and some and et cetera. Just when we as blacks were moving into the labor in the construction as union. You know, you can go over there and get you some immigrants, cheap, okay, still today. But our leadership in America has bought into it. And I said, okay, in this run, we will create an alliance. So that's what we're doing in LA. That's what FAU saying, for this run, we will reach out under My Brother's Keeper that addresses Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, and African Americans, as well as all other Americans up to age 25. No question, Mr. President, who this program is aimed at. It is aimed at their African Americans who are the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade and who the federal government discriminated against because they were here, because they were slaves. We ain't come here voluntarily. And so, Mr. President, you want to make your daughters proud, don't you? They're proud of you being president. How proud are they going to be of you after you leave the presidency less than 160 days and you don't do this? What's going to be proud about the Affordable Care Act? It ended because of Aetna pulls out, United Healthcare pulls out, okay? All right, you're running into the marketplace down, and people who have disabilities, they say, oh great, we got the Affordable Care Act, but they can't get insurance in the marketplace. And under the Affordable Care Act, you got to pay for it. Now, you know a little bit about this.
Yeah, and even more so though, not just dealing with the Affordable Care Act. I think it's something that almost every civilized, so-called civilized country in the world takes care of its citizens' medical. So we need to do the same. But what says, well, it saddens my heart. People with disabilities like me and others like me with visible and invisible disabilities, the employment rate is something like 79, 80%. Most of us are unemployed, and that's an artificial. It's artificial because we can and are very productive in studies that have been done for decades, especially what's called the DuPont study. It shows year after year, decade after decade, it shows that people with disabilities are performing at or above their non-disabled. We show up for work. We plan a little bit better. We get here in the rain. We get here in the snow. That's because we're willing to go an hour early or 2 hours early because our work ethic is so strong. But we have an artificial concept of what it takes for a person to work and who should be in charge and who should be able to make money. And we're just, it's insane. And we shouldn't be like that. But it plays right into everything I was saying before, that when we have the concept of the Scrooge mentality that says, let them die. And it means anybody that is poor, let them die, because we can use them, but we don't want them to have power. They might even start taking over. And to the audience out there, I have been just so proud in these last few weeks, because in the Olympics, the World Olympics, I'm looking at all the black and brown people of the world, people of color in the world, who have literally just showed out. Now, I love everybody. I don't care if you're black or white. You know, I now, because as a black person, was told that I could accomplish zero, was worth zero, and that my people and peoples were denied the right to even compete in the Olympics. You know, that their children are not out only competing, but getting gold medals. And that just makes me proud. And so, you know, it's not to detract from anybody else. So I'm glad for all the folks in there, the women who have been doing things, and the men that have been doing things. But I'm just especially proud to see so much diversity, black and brown faces, people of color, Asians, whatnot, just taking such a big leap and being in the forefront of the Olympics. And so I just say, keep on keeping on to all the folks. Just keep on keeping on and love everybody. I mean, I don't want you to stop loving everybody. I definitely love everybody, and we are God's creation, and we need to honor that. I'm just especially proud of when I see these young folks were told they couldn't do, doing things that when I was young, you know, there were no black Olympic swimmers. It just, that was a joke, you know, what's that? You know, there were no black Olympic divers, gymnasts, you know, that was insane. But now I just look and I see all of this beautiful opportunity that people have taken advantage of, you know, and I just say, go ahead, and I thank God for that. And I just want to see more of that. Another 4 years, I want to see even more, because what it demonstrates too is that you are oppressed. Almost, if not all of it, is artificial oppression, because it's based on the color of skin, the gender, whatever it might be, that it's usually artificial. When you take those boundaries off, people just seem to soar. I know with the stuff that I do, the Robert Lee Harris Institute, and people I work with, the chess program that I do, working with people, many of them are incarcerated. You know, many of them are poor, letting folks see that not even the sky is the limit. Carlton, there is no limit to human potential. You know, God created us to be limitless. Man decided to put the limitations on.
Yes, sir.
And once the man decides to take the limits off, for man to take those limits off, those people who are artificially enslaved, artificially denied their rights as human beings, they soar. And that just makes me so happy that they soar. And the Olympics, it's demonstrating that. They soar. So if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you won't.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And so we get imprisoned by being told that we can't. And by being told that we can't, then we don't. And we're right where those in power want us to be. You know, I know that many of my friends were happy many years ago when Ronald Reagan got in, and as president of the United States, and his philosophy was trickle down. Well, in a system based on greed, they want to stop as much from trickling down as possible. And they have succeeded in doing that. And we need to just turn that around and call it the bubble up, so that we can, we can just make it move forward. We need to bubble up. We need to be all that we can be. And I know the young brother that joined us, and he got the book back there, and I we should all read that. Everybody needs to look at that. And it's an old book, but it's a good book.
It's the one with modified. Okay, what's the name of it? So everybody called The Souls of Black Folks. Okay, by W.B. Du Bois.
Yes, sir. A long time ago.
Long time ago. They got a few revisions that he made to his book. Like after he made more like revisions to it, and they put those in here. Okay, all right.
And we need to read. We need to read that. We need to read. There's even a book that was old, but it's just popular. But people know of it now because they made a movie off of it. It's called 12 Years a Slave.
Right. Yes, sir.
That's a great movie. It's a great book. I read the book. I've seen the movie. There's another movie that is off of a true story called Bell, which is a story in England that ended up freeing the slaves, starting the destruction of the slave movement, or the slave mentality that was present in England that predated the United States in terms of doing things. We need to read these books. We need to study. We need to show ourselves approved. That's what the scripture says, study to show yourself approved. A labor that needs not be ashamed, rightly divided. That's the word of truth, God's word, rightly divided. And so we need to do that. Carlton, I don't know if you've got time to do it, or if you spoke earlier. And part of me wants you to tell some of the story of, I don't know if you feel up to it, or if you want to just kind of downplay it a little bit, or not so much downplay, but just if it bothers you to talk about it. But
Oh, yes.
And I really wish you would tell that story, because that's important to understand what you felt and even feel now, and that you have to wrestle with to overcome that and love humanity.
Yes. Anyway, what they
regardless, because they tried to kill you.
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah. And I just, if you feel like talking about it, talk about it. If not, I understand it. I just wanted to let people know that folks tried to kill you because of who you are.
Yes, sir. Because who I am, what I do.
Yeah.
I wanna speak on that, but I'm gonna let Dante speak after me, because he recently went through. It's very real that could relate to exactly what I'm going to speak on. First, I would like to talk about what Mr. Harris talked about, which was the Scrooge mentality that is not only coming from the European economic policies enacted against us before we were born, but also these lessons have been taught to our own communities, where our own community exhibits the Scrooge mentality, to where if you're poor, they don't tell you you're not nothing. They show you with their actions, with their eyes, with the expression on their face, that not only are you nothing, but you are not even worthy. Looking at you or saying a kind word to you. And that's something that the $5 trillion quantitative easing IDIQ3 Daniel proposal sitting on President Obama's desk with a 50-year economic plan to change our present, our children's present, and their generations to come. I want to bring solutions to the table.
Yeah, you should still.
Yeah, we want to bring solutions to the table, and that's what it's all about.
You just turned it off.
It's about is about solutions. One of the things, that I see in the community is this behavior is in every restaurant, library. If you go into the school system, it is spread like a virus. And,
I just want to make sure.
I don't know what it is, but excuse me. This affects our children. This affects the development of their future, because see, they are not learning from the words you say out of your mouth, from your actions, your expressions, and how you treat other people, and on to your children. We're taught as each other. We are criminalized before we are born through the images of you are still in slavery, and even the thought and mention of the first African person to be able to do something is an insult. It's been that way in the first place. The people who have did this, we cannot change the past. Is get this information and go up to the website au6.info, www.the6.info, and look at the investment. There's a budget up there, and you will see what kind of change that President Obama can do. And then I want to talk about what Mr. Harris talked about is the issue of kids. I want to touch that issue because I don't come out of the side of the house armed and ready to kill people. Where I could lose my life because someone feels like their intelligence or their perception is insulted. And they're using these things as an excuse to kill people. Keywords like fear and I was in fear for my life, or they reached for something. And it's an excuse to kill unarmed people. These people are professionally trained. Let's get this straight. Professionally trained.
Now, when you do understand, okay, police than a cosmetologist. Okay, it takes more hours to become a licensed cosmetologist in Ohio than it takes to become a policeman. Okay, so when we talk about training, that's where we go in and talk about taking the labor agreement. So mayor, you may want to be president.
Let me back up.
Okay,
put in this picture.
All right. Well,
You're
whatever.
too high.
Okay.
Let me get out of it. Let me change spots.
But I want to tell this story though.
No, but you did. No.
Yeah.
Okay, I want the whole idea. That's the Black Lives Matter shit.
No, I'm not Black Lives Matter.
No, but I'm saying in terms of the police out there.
But I'm not finished.
Okay, I understand you're not finished, but you're gonna be right in this, man.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're gonna be right that our change for the police, the change in the police is the union contract that they have to be trained properly. They're not, if you could go to be a cosmetologist, you get more training to become the 619 hours. So then to make the change, you have to change their training. The president created a task force that said, this is how you change the training. How to change the training, what we're talking about will just repeat the cycle again, right? Or ask me, come on.
I mean, I do 1,000,000%. They're investing so much money in arming these people that more money should go towards training, or some money should be added for that.
Army, look, some of these guys in Cincinnati that were killed, okay, hey, shoot.
I'm supposed to be killed.
No, I'm not saying, I said some of those guys, I'm talking about previously, all right, who was in 2001, and we had the list of 16 black men. Well, 4 of those black men were terrorizing the community, all right? Terrorizing. Thomas wasn't.
But what about those who are not terrorizing the community?
Then that's why you have
That's
the
what
police.
that's what I'm talking about.
So
I'm not
that's why
talking
you
about the people
arm the
that
police.
terrorize.
That's what you arm the police
Yeah.
with cameras.
Turn them off.
No, wait a minute, hold it.
Right.
This is part of what you
Right.
do with the contract negotiations to say you tear that camera off and that camera is still on and you tear it off, you fired.
That's right.
You fired. But
Yes,
see,
I
that's
agree.
not in the contract. That's not in the contract.
So, so the best thing to do is to be honest with the people about what's going on. When is the contract negotiation
Now,
going to be implemented? Because we need solutions.
No, wait a minute. It's now.
I'm ready to tell
Mayor
about reality.
No,
Yeah.
Mayor Cranley opened box in this, but if we don't show up and are not down at City Hall next Wednesday in the public comment sections and not down in the committee and the labor committee and saying, all right, you want to be mayor. You, Yvette Simpson, you're a council member.
Oh, I'm going to get all of them. If
Okay.
they don't stand up for the African people, I'm going to.
This is all the people. This
I'm
is
going after
in particular us, but this is where we talk about, that's why we're FAU, that when I'm not UNIA, because see, UNIA is only us. In this, okay, we need allies because it's not just us that's being killed. See, in Bones, okay, I'm a friend of Bones because my man, they said he was coming at him with a knife and the police camera didn't work. That's why they paid the family money, because all of a sudden.
I mean, I can't do anything about that, about what they won't do. Like I said, I was discussing with the people about how we can't change the past.
Right.
Then I'm going to tell my story, and then I'm going to give the solution. I'm trying to tell a story where I'm talking about people who actually hunted and stalked me intentionally, military intent on killing me, and then I'm going to tell why I didn't react, why I am not reacting violently now, why I am standing up and doing what's right in the community and showing the people and talking to these people who they talking about as a statistic. When we're talking about the people who are actually dying in these statistics, I'm the one out there talking to them.
Right.
And I'm ready to tell that story that is somebody out there is going through what I'm going through, and maybe I can give them a solution with it right now, get involved with us and do the contract negotiation, the 20%.
Yeah.
So I was going to give that.
Okay. See, we're about to close, okay, because we're about to.
Well, I won't tell the
hit
story.
But no, we're gonna follow. But we're gonna follow up on that story. In terms of that, but we're about to close because I gotta go deal with another emergency that came up. Okay, now. Computer with you?
That's all.
Okay. All right. Now I've got the room until 6. Now we can set up because we're the same computer. Okay, that you can take it on. But I'm
going to do it on my TV show. I would rather do that.
All right.
You know what I mean?
But the key thing is that if you're mad because police
it's not about being mad. I'm going to take the facts of what's going on.
Yes.
And I'm going to teach the people the truth.
Right.
Because they got a right to know.
Yes. The act. It's more than just.
I mean, we're going to act, but with solutions.
Yes.
Because that's what FAU is.
Yes.
They get to the information, unite with us, so that we can be that solution that we need to.
Here in Cincinnati.
Because it's peace that's more profitable than war. But first, we must talk about the reality of the problem so the people can see what needs to be changed and then bring the solution, which you taught me, you trained me to be a solution to what's going on right now. And then you're gonna let me be that solution.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the grasshopper. Grasshopper. Okay, all right.
I mean, you trained me.
Yeah.
So turn around and close us out.
All right. So my name's Herschel Daniels. I feel that I've done my job here. Okay. All right.
Carlton Brown Foundation is part of Friends of the African Union, is one of the signatures to the letter, Mr. President, that was sent to the African Union on December 28, 2015. We are resubmitting that letter based on the work that you've heard us do today. We are sending to you the request that you issue orders to the Federal Reserve that they buy $5 trillion worth of debt. We will generate that debt from communities like Cincinnati with people such as Carlton Brown, okay, with people like Robert Harris, with businesses. Okay, and what's your business?
FAU Cincinnati. Black Infinity Empire.
Okay, all right. Now, we followed the law, Mr. President. It's an unsolicited proposal. It's in line with the Universal Periodic Review. We've been meeting with your government agencies under the guise of Walmart and the rest of the organizations. They invited me to the table, so I took the invitation and we ran with it. And we're bringing all this together, Mr. President, over the next 10 days so that you can, and any questions that you have, we will be addressing through a congressperson who's working with us, who knows FAU. And any questions that you may have, address them to info@au6.info. That is info@au6.info. Any questions that you have on what we're saying, address it to FAU Chairman at au6.info. Our website is au6.info. And I want everybody to have a good day. Oh, and Robert? Okay, see, okay, now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learned. You said you said yes, but you said it with a weary voice.
No,
okay.
no.
Okay.
You said Robert, and let's say yes.
Yeah. So this is the implementation.
Yes.
Of what that
yes.
1,200 lines.
Yes, that was the implementation
Okay.
of the 1,200 lines.
And
So
Carlton,
that's good.
you make me proud.
To God be
you
the
made me
glory.
proud. You hug and you straight. I played devil's advocate on you, and brother, you hug straight. You hug straight. All right. All right. This is FAU Cincinnati. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So here we are. All right.
The truth
Shall set you free.